Fleetwood Town are a club that had possibly its most successful, well, definitely its most successful era from the early noughties to the early 2010s. A fantastic 20-year period for the club, roughly a decade's rise and another decade of being in League One, which was a fantastic achievement for a club with a humble sort of non-league background, thanks to lots of financial investment. And then I think it's fair to say over the last couple of years, it's had a rocky time on and off the pitch. And I think that this season in particular, it's kind of about how they move forward from this rough patch, again, on and off the pitch after relegation from League One in 23-24 and their mid-table finish in League Two last season. But they do have a manager in Pete Wild who has overseen a top 10 finish in each of his full seasons as a manager, often with one of the lower budgets in the division. And he's hoping to build a top 10 team at Fleetwood that can challenge for and possibly in the top 7 this season. So how does he go about doing that? That's what we're going to discuss on this Summer Deep Dive. Yes, welcome along to EFL Debate. You could do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify if you like what we do here. Delighted to be joined by my guest this morning, Ben Knapman, who's a Fleetwood Town YouTuber, and analyst Jack Kershaw. Gents, thanks so much for joining us. Ben, starting with you, how do you feel about where Fleetwood Town are at as a club right now?
Rebuilding again. You just got it perfectly in the intro. I thought those 20 years was magnificent. And yes, Fleetwood were in League One for 10 years and stagnated there, but Fleetwood Town being there for 10 years is an unbelievable achievement. And I do think with the supporters, it became normal to go to Portsmouth away. It became normal to go and play Sheffield Wednesday and Ipswich and co. And Fleetwood doing that for 10 years was magnificent, and it was always going to end. The biggest issue for Fleetwood that's happened since that, like lockdown, really, is the home form. For me, I think we've won 24 games in the last 4 seasons at home. From the previous season before, obviously not including the lockdown season, I think we won something like 47 or 48 games at home, which is 12 a season. You're only winning 6 games of football at home. And that's been a bit of a worry. The football club has gone into a losing mentality. It's kind of lost its roots of we're Fleetwood Town, one way in, one way out. And we've lost that announce about us where people actually fear Fleetwood. You think, tricky tie, open stadium, and it's difficult to go to. A lot of people want Fleetwood away now because they'll be saying it's the favourite weekend of the season because they have a nice weekend and they go away with 3 points or a point at the very, very minimum. It has improved under Pete Wild, and I do think that this is the most optimistic I've gone into a full season probably since the 1920 season when we had Joey Barton and we got into the playoffs. So there is reason to be positive this season.
Do you share that optimism, Jack?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously I think all Fleetwood fans like Pete Wild, even if outsiders don't like Pete Wild. But I think we've got a manager who, he's on the face of it, with his age-wise, a bit of experience. But his 2 years at Barrow, started early at Oldham, then he went to Halifax. We've got a bit of experience there, and also someone who knows the league and someone who can hopefully take us back to League One. And he's not stupid, he'll want to recruit smartly, which I think he will. And I think that with his play style, it will help us to get our home form good and want to make Highbury a fortress, because that's what he wants to be, tough to beat. And then, last season when we got, superb away wins, hopefully you can take them away wins too and match it by the home form.
Ben, Jamie stepped into the role of chairman last summer. How do you feel his first 12 months of his reign has gone? Obviously, he's very familiar with the club for obvious reasons.
Yeah, there'll always be purple patches, and there'll always be a bit of where you can do better. I felt, if I'm honest with you, looking back now, I think it was the right decision to bring Pete Wild in over Charlie Adam. I thought the form we were in after Charlie Adam was poor, but I I think out of our 7 defenders, 6 were injured, and there wasn't really any change there. I was a bit more, just give him a bit more time, but he made that bold statement, which I felt, okay, wow. And then since then, there's been some good decisions. In January, there wasn't really much to do because we're never going anywhere, really. It never felt that we had to do a lot of recruitment in January, and that's impossible, basically, for Fleetwood on the budget.
Save it for the summer, really.
And every time I spoke to Jamie personally, he said, "Oh, we'll just save it for the summer. We can sign this, but we'll just save it for the summer and get someone really better." I thought the recruitment last summer was the start of a plan. It almost felt like we had to rip it up and start again. Like if you look at it started in the January when we we're getting relegated, where I think Marriott, Vela left the football, Josh Earl left the football club, I think all on the same day, replaced by loanees to get us through. Then we only brought 6 players in between then and the start of the season, and those 3 or 4 after that felt rushed. Now it feels we're going into season 2. It feels like, well, now we've got a bit of foundation to work with. We know the division, and yes, we might need another 8 or 9, but it doesn't feel like we're starting again from scratch. It almost felt like we had to put the building places in. 14th doesn't sound like a good season. I thought it was a good season for Fleetwood last season. Personally, you've stopped the rot, you finished mid-table, and we've not battled against relegation. We won 15 games. We had some great days out. We had a couple of good, performances at home. It was probably as good as we could have got. Yes, I'd like better. So now I feel like add 7 or 8 players to it with quality. Couple of goals in there, new manager in there as well. And who knows, Fleetwood can hopefully get back to what we do best and winning games of football at home and being difficult away from home, and little Fleetwood Town going to stadiums and putting on a show.
Well, let's hope you can do that. Let's have a look at the squad then. I'll start with the goalkeeping position, Jack. David Harrington, he's previously, I think I'm right in saying, been a number 2 at Fleetwood to good goalkeepers like Jay Lynch, but last season he really kind of came into his own.
Yeah, I think also that's not helped with injury for Harrington. I think he had an injury at Cork, and then he came over and then got an injury for a substantial amount of time. But yeah, it was the last home game of 23-24 where he started against Burton, and we thought, yeah, he's a decent keeper, even though Burton didn't pose much of a threat in that game. And then we went into the season, and yeah, for the first half, Harrington smashed it, to be honest. I thought, he's a decent sized keeper. He made some great saves. He's also decent with his feet, and we thought, then we probably needed a change of keeper then, and that's obviously where Jalen stepped away and went to be a number 2. But then Harrington got injured on Boxing Day. Then ever since Jay Lynch has come back, he's been superb. So I think, going into the season, we've got 2 really solid keepers, and then we've got Stephen McMullen out on loan at Waterford, who's got himself a Northern Ireland call up, which is great. So, going into the season, it's great to have 2 really solid keepers. But then I think it was last January where I think Swansea and Huddersfield were sniffing around for David Harrington, a 24-year-old keeper who obviously really did well, and then he got his Wales call up, changed his nationality from Ireland to Wales. So. I'm positive going into the season with 2 very good goalkeepers, and I think the opinion of most of the fan base has changed on Jay Lynch because in going into the season, I think everyone either wanted a new number 1 or wanted either McMullen or Harrington to start. That happened, and then I think with Lynch stepping back and helping Harrington get there, and then he's brought back into the squad, and then it's his chance to prove why he is at the main number 1. And so I think going into the season, having Harrington and Lynch is just hopefully we can hold on to Harrington, and there's no links with him going to either a Championship or League One club.
I mean, on that, Ben, I imagine that from Harrington's point of view, the only real motivation for staying at Fleetwood would be that if he was going to be their number 1. Whereas if you're going to be the number 2, you might as well, be number 3, say at Swansea, and or be loaned out there, but be on a much bigger wage. So I imagine that's going to be quite a big factor for him.
I think it will, and also if you go to a club like a Swansea or Huddersfield, you'll probably get a move back to League One or League Two anyway if it doesn't work out there as well, because there's a lot of team. I think Barnsley, especially Lincoln, have done it in the past where they go for a good lone goalkeeper for a year because they just feel like they can get. I think Lincoln's have been the expert, as I know from Jake. That's all I ever hear about. But yeah, I think that it'd be very interesting what happens next year. On Jay Lynch quickly as well. I think he was outstanding second half of last season. I think he got tarnished under a brush that under Lee Johnson, especially, there was a cult group of players that didn't want to be at the football club, and all of them left, and Jay Lynch was the only one left. And then Rudy came back in, and Lynch came back into the side as well. And it felt like those two might not want to be there in the past, but almost felt like something had changed with them, and they wanted to be there. And there was a bit of a mindset switch. Managerial change helps that. Being in a positive dressing room helps that as well. So, yeah, I think Jay Lynch was excellent. New deal for him. I know that the football club were adamant on getting it done. Pete Wild liked him a lot as well. He's an experienced goalkeeper. He's a northern lad. He's a Pete Wild type of player, I think, as well, because he likes working with northern players and players that know the area. Jay Lynch suits that. So it'll be very interesting to see who is number one. Obviously, David Harrington has just suffered bad injury after a bad injury. I wouldn't be surprised if David Harrington was sold this window and Stevie McMullen was number two, or Luke Hewitson obviously would be the number three then as well. That wouldn't surprise me because I think Fleetwood would think he's been here for 3 years now. He's a good goalkeeper. I think he's played 20 times in 3 years, which is worrying.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's fair play to Jay Lynch then, Jack, on that, just because he did kind of defy his doubters, I guess, and kind of rediscovered that brilliant form we saw him have in the 22-23 season, where he was outstanding in League One. So again, I mean, who do you think should be starting the season as Fleetwood's number one?
It's a tough one because you've got a keeper who started the season very well, then you've got a keeper who ended the season very well. So I mean, I suppose it's what you want in a keeper really, because obviously Harrington's taller. I think he's better with his feet. But then I think Lynch is probably better 1v1 coming off his line. And I also think that Lynch has actually improved in the air, coming in for crosses and not getting bullied essentially in the box. So I think with probably us giving Lynch a new deal, I don't think he would have got a new deal that wanted to go back to number two. So I'd probably put Lynch number one, and then like Ben said, if Championship and League One sides come for Harrington, then he started this amount of games in League Two. Is he going to be a reliable goalkeeper? And then, we'll have to recall Stephen McMullen, who also, it looks like he isn't a bad keeper when he's getting called up to Northern Ireland. And then also people at Waterford are saying that he's a great keeper.
Yeah, well, that's very encouraging. You've got far too many good goalkeepers. You're being very, very greedy. So if I've mapped the squad out as a 3-1-4-2, it might not be that formation, but that's what I've kind of gone with. And the big thing that stands out for me in terms of the defence, Ben, is you're missing that dominant middle centre half, and I guess that's going to be a key priority when it comes to this window.
I think it will. Obviously, we've just signed Toby from obviously Crawley as well, who's experienced. He wants to get back to the north, where he's from, where he originates from. And Pete has said that many times. He wants players that are local to the area that no northern background. James Bolton, experienced pro at times. I think he's good in a 3 and a 4. He struggle. I think sometimes that. He's one of those typical lower league footballers, head and kick the ball away, at times limited with what he could do, but he's a solid addition for League Two last season. Brendan Murray will go, and I think that, if I'm honest with you, I love Brendan to bits. I hope Brendan's gone in the next week, because the lads come back a week on Monday. I don't want anything going around the training ground of what's happening with Brendan. Is Brendan staying or is he going? I think we need to get it done in the first. A bit like we did with Promise last time in junior. They started with us, but they were out the door within the first 2 weeks. So for me, I've wrote Brendan off as a Fleetwood player. I thank him for everything he's done for our football club, but I think it's time that he moves on now and we replace him. We lost, obviously, Reece Bennett, who was on loan, who I thought as a loan signing, I thought it was the best of a poor bunch, I would say, last season. But he was I thought, a solid League Two player, I think, can maybe get another League Two or a League One move next season as well. So yeah, I do agree. I do think we need, a couple of defenders. There's a couple of other areas we need as well. But I think every team in this league and in leagues above will be looking at the same thing as well. It'd be interesting to see what happens. But one signing so far, very impressed with that. Just a few more would be nice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Jack, I imagine with Toby Mullicky, I've got him down as part of the an option for right of a back three. I imagine he's quite versatile. So if he played a back four, he could also play at right back, maybe right wing back at a push, or possibly other centre half positions. Do you think his versatility was the big attraction when it comes to this signing?
Yeah, and I think Pete Wild also looks at, players, how they communicate and how they go about the business. Because if you look at, obviously, Toby Malarkey's social media, he looks like a good professional who keeps himself in top shape. And I think that's also a reason why we signed Harrison Neal in January, because of that connection Pete Wild had, and he can trust him. He knows that he's a good guy and he's a grafter. I watched a couple games of Malarkey, and he's a slow player, so he definitely needs pace around him, especially if you're getting balls in behind. And he's not the most agile, but he does the basics and he defends. So I think like Ben said, Pete likes northern guys. Toby wanted to move back up north, so it's a great match for Pete and Toby. But I definitely agree with the dominant centre half. I think in the Facebook chat, a lot of people were saying about Sam Lavelle, who'd been released from Carlisle, and I think he'd be a good addition on a free, to be honest, as that middle centre half, being the dominant one, and also he's a threat off offensive set pieces. So if anyone who's listening for Fleetwood recruitment, get Sam Lavelle signed.
I speak to his mum. His mum taught me at school, Gab.
Nice.
Speak to his mum. Yeah, his dad goes to the same gym as me, so leave it to Adrian Knappers. He'll find the Blackpool.
What did she teach you?
She was just my form tutor, to be fair. She used to teach, she was like performance arts when I was like year 7, year 8, and when I would drop that in year 9, but she then just turned into performance tutor as well. But that his dad's actually called Ben, actually, as well. Goes to the same gym as me. But if I spoke to him, I don't think he'd be coming to Fleetwood. He'd be going to Blackpool or Morecambe, back to
No, I'm sure you could put a good word in. So in terms of, it definitely looks like, because if Wiradoo's going to go, what I've got at the moment is you've got 3 left-footed centre halves, I think, in Caden Hughes, Zach Medley, and I think Finley Potter might be left-footed as well, isn't he? So you've got 3 left-footed centre halves, and if Wiradoo goes, it's actually only 2 right-footers. So basically, probably another middle centre half, and maybe even Premier League loan, somebody who could play on the right of the back 3, someone who's quick and strong and good on the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing as well on Zach Medley as well, for the first 3 or 4 games of the season, he looked unreal. Like, I think that Fleetwood, when they'd done the business last year, I think the 2 that the recruitment and people involved at the football club were most happy about bringing in. I think that they were happy that they brought Mackenzie Hunt in, but everybody was raving over Zach Medley. Obviously, we've known of his quality already, big, powerful, and when he played against Newport on the kind of the penultimate game of the season, he was a level above. You could just the way he charged out as well. And with Brendan going as well, you need a player that's going to step up the pitch and get you playing as well. So I already think that, yes, obviously Zach Medley is left-footed, but I already feel like we've got that player there who's got those qualities. And then, like you say, bring a couple in. I think Finley Potter is that type of player that will probably be good to play 20, 25 times a season. I think you can play, like you said about, Toby before, you can play him probably left back and he does a good job, or left of a back 3 and does a good job. I think Finley Potter came on at Aki at 1-1 at left back, and we won the game 4-1, and I thought it was really good that night. And then Caden Hughes, again, he stepped in a lot under Charlie Adam, not played a minute under Pete Wild. So I think he's had injuries as well. Not a lot's been said about that. It's really, really weird. So be interesting to see what happens there. And then, yeah, like you say, I think we could do with another right, kind of a right side centre back as well, a right back as well, potentially, because Ryan Broom's left the football club. So it's like, you're losing another option there at right wing back. Sean Rooney's great. So it'd be very interesting to see what's on the kind of top of the priority list as kind of this season draws closer.
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned Finley Potter there. Jack, do you think now he's had what you'd call a breakout season for Fleetwood, where he could play a few games and sort of establish himself? Do you think we could see him kicking on another level this year and maybe becoming, a staple in the first team?
I hope so, because I think Potter's just a reliable player who'll always give you minimum 6, 7 out of 10. To be honest, I think at left back, he's good, even against tricky wingers. He's good because he can read the diags, and then he can win the header there. Or even if he's 1v1, he can use his strength versus the wingers to get him off the ball. And I think also he's decent on the ball from what I've seen. I think it was actually against Salford at home. He played a diag and then we scored, but like the passing ranges there that Ben said, maybe we don't have with James Bolton. But I think for that left centre half spot, it's going to be very difficult to get Zach Medley out the team if he stays injury free for the season. So obviously, if we switch to a 4, then I think it'll be Potter and then put Phoenix at left winger, because I think if you put Potter left back, I think he's probably more defensively sound than Mackenzie Hunt. And we saw when we went to a 4-2-3-1, Potter would be left back. He took into a back three with the ball. Then it allowed Sean Rooney to go on the other side and bomb on the right wing. So I think that dynamic works. And I think I'd rather see that than Mackenzie Hunt, because I think, although I think Hunt is very technically gifted, I think he's much preferred to his team, maybe like Notts County, who want to dominate the ball, and he can get more of a feel for the ball and get crosses into the box, because I think defensively he's a bit suspect, which the fan base has seen. And then obviously then you've got Phoenix Patterson at left wing back, who's also obviously not a defender. So I think the dynamic of having Potter as a left back and then Medley or Bolton, or if we sign another centre back, and then Sean Rooney at right wing back, I think that dynamic works for the back 4.
Interesting. I mean, you've certainly got the option to play with a back 4 or a back 3. Yeah, Ben, I mean, I know when Sean Rooney first came to Fleetwood in the 22-23 season, he played as a right centre half in a 3. Well, he either played there or right back, but he basically played behind Harvey McAdam. I think it was McAdam who was a wing back. And I actually quite liked him in that more sort of supporting role. But obviously, when he plays the wing back, he's got to be the one that provides the thrust going forward. But whereas you've got Mackenzie Hunt and Phoenix Patterson on the left, who can really provide that kind of thrust and quality, I don't know if I see necessarily the same qualities in Sean Rooney, and I wonder if that can create a bit of an imbalance for Fleetwood.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Sean, as a right wing back, is great because he has got that quality. If there's a good right centre back behind him to kind of, he goes off on his own like a dog, and you got somebody pulling him back. I'll be honest with you, the best I'd seen of him was probably the last 5 games of this season in League One, and he got moved to like right centre half, and that's where I think he played predominantly at St Johnstone when he won the cup. I think he scored a couple of goals in the finals as well. And he was really good there. And I felt that because you weren't giving him like the license to go, it was like he had to stay there. You weren't giving him any freedom. You were like, stay there. And he's like decent one-on-one. He's got strength. He can, stand you up. He's quite strong. He's powerful. So, yeah, I get what you mean. I think the left-hand side, I love Phoenix. Phoenix is great over there as well. I do feel like if he's 30 or 40 yards up, we get so much better out of him. The system doesn't really suit Phoenix Patterson, but it does well. Mackenzie Hunt, I've not seen an awful lot to think, wow, if I'm honest with you, but it's his first season in professional football. He's been on the bench a lot for Everton, and I do want to see a little bit more from him next season, but I kind of think that you can probably get more from Sean on the right-hand side than you can from Mackenzie on maybe the left-hand side.
I'm surprised you'd say that, because I think Mackenzie Hunt's quality of deliveries I would think of that as being better than somebody like Sean Rooney, who I think is more of a just a big athlete who can just drive power forward kind of thing. But
I think Rooney's quality is, when he gets the ball, he charges forward a lot of the time, and you almost feel like you're going to get. you're going to get the ball forward predominantly quicker, back to front really quickly, and it gets you excited as a supporter. Look, Mackenzie Hunt, I'm not taking off at all. I think there's a good player there, and it's his first season in professional football, and there has been a lot of good crosses. I think he's got 7 or 8 assists, which is good going as well. I think most of them were in the first half of the season as well, and I do think there was a player that got better as it went on. I almost feel that if I was starting a left wing back, it would be Phoenix Patterson over Mackenzie Hunt, just because I almost feel from set pieces, from deliveries, Phoenix sets a lot of slaughter before his crosses, but he puts 20, 25 crosses in a game. They're not all going to be bang on. Eventually, you'll get some. And there's been a lot of good Phoenix moments. I think away at Port Vale a couple of years ago, there was 8 or 9 unbelievable crosses where Fleetwood scored 2 goals in like 4 minutes.
Oh yeah, I know the one where Port Vale just in the last, they were 2-0 up, weren't they? And then what do you think, Jack?
I think with Rooney, you get a solid right wing back. Obviously, like Ben said, he's powerful, and I think you've also got a good defensive side there. And I think I agree, he's not going to get the crosses in, but I think in the 22-23 season, he did get 6 goals, 7 assists. So I think his powerful cutbacks across goal are decent, and then the angle on that right hand side to maybe hit the left corner, I think suits him. But I think probably liability for Rooney is that on transition, it's not like he don't want to track back. He'll track back and he's like a bull when he comes back. It's just that he gives a lot of fouls away, so it's it's an easy booking in the 10th minute. And obviously he's known for his hot-headed business. But and then on the other side, you've got 2 good crosses of the ball of Hunt and Phoenix. I think, like Ben said, Phoenix, will get a high volume of crosses, and I think if we do get a target man, it might suit Phoenix better because they'll get more assists because there'll be, a bigger and taller person to get on the end of him. Where we only had really Ryan Graydon, who's I think just 6 foot to get on the end of him, and then obviously Hunt and Phoenix. I think they both got double figures for assists, and then essentially it's offset pieces. But if we do get that target man, either side, if Rooney gets the cutbacks, and then we can flood the box like we do with Matty Virtue and stuff. And then obviously Phoenix on the other side, it can go either way of his man. It can get a bit frustrating because it can sometimes get a bit sort of readable what he's doing. If he cuts in on his right, then he's going to shoot. If he goes down the flank, he's going to get a ball in the box. So and then Hunt is just really if he can get in those zones. And I think a bit frustrating in open play with Hunt because he was matched by Danny Mayer, who really played at a slow tempo and didn't release the ball when the crowd really wanted him to, and then he dribbled and lose the ball and not even shoot. So I think the left hand side probably needs to work better. We need to have someone using the underlaps and overlaps because Danny Mayer didn't offer that, and sometimes it's a bit hard when players are 2v1 on Phoenix, which Phoenix can sort of wriggle out of, but Mackenzie Hunt isn't one of them where he's going to take on 3 men at a time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, well, I think certainly with the left wing back spot, I think we can all agree although it hasn't all come together seamlessly just yet, there is serious potential, I think, with Mackenzie Hunt and Phoenix Patterson for those 2 to be your options, or to play together with Hunt at left back and Patterson on the left wing or something. So I think on that side of the pitch, there's serious potential. I would probably make the case for signing a little bit in the mould of Connor Barrett to Walsall signed last year, but I can understand why people would think Rooney's done well enough to keep his place in the best 11. But that would be my thinking. Maybe just go for one more in that wing back spot. Talk to me about Elliot Bonds then, Ben. What do you make of his campaign on the fan page?
I thought he was fantastic. I genuinely did. And when kind of you're at home or especially home games, or you're watching the game away from home, you're almost saying more so at home, who's going to get man of the match today? And I would say out of the 23 home games that we had, I turned to Phil or turned to Jack or turned to somebody at the game, and I would say over 10 times at home, I would say Elliot Bond. And there was probably a run from about January to March, and Jack, I think I know what I mean by this, but we played like Walsall, Cheltenham was in, where I probably say Elliot Bonds was about 4 games in a row where he was probably the best player on the park. And what I like about Bondsy is he's played as a 6, he's played as an 8 a lot of the time as well. When he played as an 8, I thought, oh, that never worked. But it actually worked because he's very powerful, charges through the midfield. And you actually look at Fleetwood's recruitment last year, and although there wasn't a lot of it was good. Elliot Bonds came in, James Bolton, an experienced pro. Reece Bennett was a good loan signing. I'm trying to think who else. Mackenzie Hunt was another one. So there was a lot. Matty Virtue as well, who was outstanding. So I thought Bonds was outstanding last year. He often took a yellow card in the kind of the earlier part of the season. You knew that was going to happen, and we missed him. He got injured away at Reading, and he was out for 6 weeks. And we didn't. I don't think we won a game in that 6 weeks. When he came back, we were a much better side with Elliot Bonds on the pitch, and he was fantastic. I think he got Player of the Year. I think as well. Jack, did he? Yeah.
Supporters Player of the Year.
He got Supporters Player of the Year as well, and it was very close between like him, Lynch, and Phoenix, and I thought he was outstanding and great signing for us. And he's again a typical League One, League Two footballer that does everything that. Without him, I don't think Matty Virtue or Mark Helm and then the players further up the pitch can go and do what they do. So it's great to have a player like him at the football club, experienced as well. I think he's only 24. If you said to me, Elliot Bond, if I watched him and I never heard of him before, I'd say 27 to 29 range. So I think he's wise beyond his years as well.
Yeah, I think he's a League One footballer. I think you've actually done very well to get him in the club. And I think just that, because he's actually quite a tenacious player as well. He's not afraid to put a challenge in, but then some of his passing can be really good. He's very coached on the ball. So, yeah, I think Elliot Bonds is going to be a really key player. And I guess, Jack, is it going to be important to try and get him on the ball in those deeper areas and dictating play in the way that to get Fleetwood on the front foot, I guess?
Yeah, because if you look at the 6 in Harrison Neal, he's not a player who wants to be in the ball in tight spaces. I think for Neal, when he receives the ball, he needs a lot of space to get his first touch right, and then shape his body to have a diagonal pass, or even to just play out to the right back or a bounce past the centre back. But I think Bond, he's got that. Probably the best technical player in the midfield. You know, he's really techie in what he does. He'll be able to carry the ball.
Over Mark Helm?
It's interesting because Helm he only started to show his quality really at the end of the season. I think he got 7 goals in the campaign. So then you're looking at maybe a more of a goal scoring 10 in Mark Helm instead of maybe a playmaking one, because I don't think he got an assist actually. Right. But then you're looking at Elliot Bonds, where, to be honest, when he was in the 8th position, I think a few fans were saying, yeah, he's good at carrying the ball, he's good at being, a technical player, but has he got sort of the creativity if we're playing, against maybe a low block or something, to actually break a defence? But then I think we saw that his relationship with Ryan Graydon in behind was great, because he could thread passes in behind, he could turn out of tight spaces and play out. And
his vision and his long range passing is actually really good. I think for anyone want to check out Elliot Bonds' vision, there was an assist for Alfie May's goal for Cheltenham away at Peterborough in the 22-23 season, where it was like stunning vision, like an over the top pass. So it does show that he can spot those kind of passes, and he does have it in his locker. So hopefully we're going to be seeing more of that.
Yeah, definitely. I think over Mark Helm, I think obviously because Bonds only played in the 8, really, I'd say in February time or late January. So I think it'll be interesting to see a full season of that. But then, a player that obviously we know is way above this level, are we going to get interest for Elliot Bonds? And are we going to have to recruit again for that position? Because although obviously he signed last season, there's obviously, interest where he might get a move where he can't obviously turn down. But yeah, I think his technicality in the midfield that he brings, and then also I think if you're playing Helm and Virtue, you're having 2 goal scoring 8s or 10s, and then really you're looking at heavily putting a lot of heavy emphasis on the wide players to create chances. Where I think Bonds, when the game's open, he can obviously, like you say, thread a pass through. So I'm not saying that Helm and Virtue are opposites, because when Helm signed, Burton fans were saying what a player you've got, he'll rip up League Two.
Virtue, I think, is a bit more of a solid, can play a bit deeper, can't he? Whereas I would think of Helm as more of a, he's definitely a number 10. So I think, if, for instance, if he played 3-4-1-2 rather than 3-1-4-2, I think Helm would be in the 10, and I think Virtue would be playing deeper next to Bonds.
Yeah, 100%, because obviously, like we said, that Bonds is versatile to play as a 6. He's really press resistant. I think if he does get caught out, that's where he gets his bookings. If he gets pressed, then maybe he doesn't check his shoulder. But then, yeah, I fully agree with you there. I think 10, Helm's probably the only natural 10 we've got now. Danny Mayer's left the club. And Virtue is just a great box-to-box runner, really good in the box. I think he got 10 goals in the end, or did he get 9? No, he got 9. But I still think that for a player who came on a free transfer, who didn't really get a look in at Blackpool, even when he was, not really injured, he only came on for a few cameos off the bench. I thought he did really good, and I think he was a player that, he'd give you a solid 7, 8 out of 10. I think he probably would be my second best player of the year behind Bonds for me, Virtue.
I mean, Ben, looking at the makeup of the midfield, are we looking at a case of 3 from Helm, Bonds, Neil, and Virtue, or somebody like George Morrison? Could he come into the equation? Because when I went into the training ground in April to speak to Pete Wild, George Morrison was a name that there seems to be a lot of buzz around in terms of around the club.
Yeah, when I spoke to Jamie in March, and obviously he mentioned that George was going to come back and play a few games, kind of when Tamworth season was done, and when we could get him back into the building, really get him playing. You've got 5 really good midfielders there. I think it'd be great to get one more in. Then you've got 6, then 3 fighting, 3, kind of 2 in kind of each role, really, as well. And I'm delighted. I think for the first time in a long time, I'm delighted with the midfield options that we've got. And I think over the years, we've not always had the best of midfields, but we've always had decent midfield options. At crucial, your Carl Dempsey's, your Callum Camps, or these types of worlds as well. But now it feels defensively midfield. We've got good players there in a lot stronger areas. I think kind of it'll be kind of Neil and Bond. I think Neil is that type of player that he's a Pete Wild boy. He'll do anything for Pete Wild. Northern lad again, and no. And I always mention Northern lads because when I spoke to Pete Wild on several occasions, he's always mentioned that he wants players that he knows. He's always got the best out of Northern lads before. And I look at Harrison Neal, and you look at where he's been. I think his best attribute and best seasons have always come under Pete.
It was at Barrow in the 22-23 season, wasn't it? That he was fantastic. Yeah. So
and he's one of those hard. I think Neil is that type of player that in the months of November to March, especially when pitches start to do, and it gets a battle, it becomes a real battle. Perfect. George Morrison, I was really impressed with, actually, when I watched him, and I feel like there's a really good player in there. But I think it's about managing his minutes as well, not just throwing him straight in. Virtue has to start for me. I think for me, Virtue and Bonds are the 2 must starters. And then it's, one of Morrison, Helm, Neil, etc. Whoever you're playing as well. So it's going to be very interesting. But in that area, we're well stocked. But it's too good to be true for Fleetwood. So you never quite know. There'll be an injury there somewhere.
So here's what I think in terms of, I'm going to correlate the midfield with the wing back conversation that we had earlier. I think possibly if we're talking who is the best midfield trio, I think it's probably Virtue, Bonds, and Neil objectively.
Yeah.
But I also think as a trio, is there quite enough creativity among those 3 to supersede not having a high quality right wing back? in the same way that Mackenzie Hunt and Phoenix Patterson are super creative. So I think that if that's going to be your trio, I think you need another Connor Barrett type at right wing back, if you like, or somebody in that vein who can fly forward and really create and produce those moments of quality and almost put more creative emphasis on your wing backs. Whereas I think Sean Rooney would probably be fine if you play Elliot Bonds, Matty Virtue, and then somebody like Mark Helm, who I think can create in those more advanced areas. But you've got to make sure that you've got enough creativity in that side, either through tailoring your selections in midfield or through signing another wing back.
I definitely agree with that, because I think that we do need a 10. Actually, I forgot. We've actually got Will Johnson at right back, another academy lad. He could play right back and right centre back. So again, it's a versatile player there who's more defensive. But yeah, I definitely agree that Neil should be the 6 and Bond and Virtue. But then, like you say, you're looking at that creative spark. And then I think what Pete likes is if he's centre forward, drops deep and links the place. A lot in the first half of the season, we saw Graydon drop deep and then carry the ball, to obviously get us up the pitch and try and thread balls into Coughlin, who's got really good movement. And I think that is definitely the midfield to go into. But then, like you say, it's a dynamic of obviously the team working, and if say we've got 60 to 65% of the ball, it's going to be hard to obviously break the blocks down. But also I think we will see a lot of George Morrison. He's actually played, I think, 75 games in National League over 2 seasons. So that's really impressive for a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
And I think, when I saw him at Chesterfield, then he started against Harrogate. Albeit Harrogate won the best game team because it was a poor performance, but definitely against Chesterfield when he came on, you've got a really hard worker who, I think we were 3-1 down at the time, and he was still chasing the ball and still going after it. And then
and Pete was going to love that in somebody like who's got that instinct to constantly chase the ball regardless of the game state, continuously put pressure on the opposition. I think he'll be like, yeah, I'll have a bit of that.
100%. And when you've got a player like Harrison Neal who won't step up, and that's actually probably a fan favourite now, because everyone likes a player who's just going to get stuck in. And like Roy Keane said, just go and smash into somebody. That's literally what Harrison Neal does.
Player, hard working, does the hard yards, just a proper normal lad. And I think he's. If you wouldn't mention Harrison Neal, he's not mentioned as a footballer because he banged the drum at Crewe away. We like him because he banged the drum at Crewe away, and he's got a bit.
That's good enough for me to start.
JJ.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, in terms of Jack touched on the attack there, Ben. I think, are we looking at Ryan Graydon? Do we see him having potential to go up another gear next season?
100%. It's quite ironic that you've asked. Obviously, me and Jack are on the show. That a lot of games last season when Ryan Graydon, I think he scored something like 1 in 21. Ryan Graydon in those 21 games, should he have scored more goals than he did? Yes. But did he create chances for himself? Yes, he did. You could just tell he was drop of the shoulders. He was struggling because when Graydon got on a run at the start of the season, he was on fire. Up to the end of October, as a front two, there was no partnership in the top 4 division of English football that had more goals and assists, more goal contributions than Coughlin and Graydon. And they were honestly together. They were great. And because I remember going on a show and there was like, oh, there's no real threat in Fleetwood team, and I was like, they've got the most goals in the front. And then when we lost Coughlin, that was a big loss, and it almost felt like Graydon was out on his own, and you were pinning, and he had to do everything. And I think it was Wimbledon at home where I thought that was the best I'd seen Graydon at that time. He hadn't scored, but he should have scored out. But he was just outside. He held it. He did it, the hard yards. And fans got on his back unfairly. He scored at Grimsby. He did a celebration he shouldn't have done. I was all for that because I'm a big believer in you get your frustrations out, but back it up. And I almost feel like, like Ted Lasso effect when Jamie stopped being, a proper, who he was, started being nice. He lost who he was. When he was basically a bit of a boy, he started playing again. And that's what I felt with Ryan Graydon towards the end of the season. And I think he got on a run where he scored, was it like 6 in 6 or 6 in 5 or something like that? And then obviously he goes and gets injured. So I've seen enough of Ryan Graydon as his first season as a striker as well. He's normally a winger. So I've seen enough that I see a lot of quality in Ryan Graydon. And I think that as a player, that probably Ryan Graydon was probably up here and League One was maybe up there. The levels come down to about there and Ryan Graydon's gone up. So I think that he's been the best of both worlds as well. But I'm really looking forward to seeing a full season of hopefully Ryan Graydon at the football. He will attract offers. He will, because of his goal return towards the end of the season. And you actually go through his goals and assists for the appearance he had. I think he got something like 18 goal contributions for a player that played, 25, 30, maybe 30, 35 times. That's not bad going, that. And considering he didn't get a goal for like 15 odd games, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. But we need a couple more, because it almost felt like it was Coughlin and Graydon, and that was it. It was Louis Marsh, Kobe Moore, Meepo, Tommy Lonergan, who all four. Marsh was the best, but there's no real experience, no real pedigree there. So we do need a couple more to go alongside.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, on that point of a bit more Football League experience, I can definitely see the argument for it, because there isn't a huge amount of know-how in those attacking options. But also, I do believe that with the way that Pete Wild likes to play, being players who are really aggressive from the front and have bags of energy, that they're able to for 90 minutes, I think is going to be a really important aspect as well. So it's going to be an intriguing balancing act, isn't it, in terms of the recruitment of forwards this summer?
100%, and I think Graydon can have it for 90 minutes. We've seen it that he's lasted 90 minutes and he's still pressing. I think that's what I got a bit frustrated about the fan, because even though he's not scoring, but at least he's not a striker who's just sitting off the ball waiting for stuff to happen and waiting for it to come to him. He was pressing hard. He gave 110%, and I think where his form came is when it was a front two of him and Louis Marsh, and Louis Marsh should be able to drop deep, and then he'd be able to let Graydon go in behind. And I think also when it was Coughlin and Graydon, it was a good partnership up until October, but then it was Graydon being the target man. It was Graydon being the one who was doing the ugly stuff. And then it didn't allow him to run in behind, which when he got the form, that was what he was doing, just running in behind. And obviously scoring goals, and to end the season with 20 goal contributions, I think that's a really great return. That even though it is in all competitions, because he scored a few EFL Cup goals, but I mean we saw his finishing then, and I think that the partnership of him and Coughlin does work, but then obviously Coughlin won't be available to I think September, so I think it is. A matter of getting a target man, and I think, do we look for Ireland again, because we've had some probably miss hits of Meepo, but then also there's a possibility of maybe Scotland. I know that Barrow signed, I think it was
Innes Cameron, I think it was,
from Kilmarnock. He didn't really get a run in there, but and then there's obviously maybe we potentially look at the National League, which we've never done before. Really, like we're not known for the National League recruitment, but I think some fans would be happy to see maybe a National League centre forward signed who's just an out and out goal scorer, because like Michael Cheek, centre forward scores goals no matter what the division.
Just on that, I'm led to believe that the sort of climate of National League goal scorers has been a bit dry in terms of last season. So if you did sign somebody prolific, it'd probably be from step 2 or below. So just kind of bearing that in mind. But I agree with you that the premise of the idea of recruiting players a little bit lower and backing them to make that step up. But again, they've got to fit into that core identity, haven't they?
Yeah, and also it's going to be interesting, because without a head of recruitment, I think Pete Wild will probably be taking more of a control over the recruitment. Well, I think, to be honest, Joe, I think signed Boston Lowell, who obviously took it to a next level in League One. I think the 22-23 season, I think that was when he was head of recruitment. And what I'm led to believe is that John Walters was director of football at the time.
Or technical director, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I think obviously, a head of recruitment is he's not just going to be blocked out. I think we'll have something to have a part to play. And I think, to be honest, I think Wigan signed someone. I can't remember who it was the other day, but I looked at his record and I think that was a decent
Was it
signing.
Fraser Murray from Kilmarnock?
Yeah, I think so. But hopefully, we can recruit well for Wigan, because also he's a really nice guy, Joe. He did a lot for me too.
Oh, nice. So Knappers, I mean, Graydon and Coghlan, I guess you'll be putting a lot of eggs in that basket. But how are you feeling about the likes of Lonergan and Owen Devonport as alternative options?
Lonergan, I think you're on loan at Waterford till the end of the season, and yeah, I've never really seen anything from him, if I'm going to be honest with you, in the nicest way possible. When we had him, obviously, when we had Cockle and Graydon as the 2, and the 3, we had Harrott, Meepo, and Lonergan. He was the 4th best. Obviously, Meepo's gone, Lonergan's gone. I think they actually both played each other. I think Meepo played for Shelbourne, Lonergan for Waterford. Devonport, I'm 50-50 on. He's all right to throw off the bench for 15 minutes. I don't think he's quite ready to start games for us. I'm not the biggest of fan of him, if I'm honest with you. I don't see a complete strike. And I hate being negative on a player, but I just don't quite see it. He's all right to throw. He's in cameos. He's done okay off the bench. And there's been a couple, like the nice goal away at MK Dons. I thought he was probably the best player on the pitch for Fleetwood when he came on in the second half against Barrow. I didn't say anything. But when I've started him, I get frustrated watching him at times. But he's still young. It's his first season in professional football. Maybe need to kick him some slack. But I think it'd be good as maybe that. Bring another 2 strikers in and be that striker. And then, 20 times a season off the bench for a few, for 10, 15 minutes. He's tall. He can hold it up. But again, he's got a lot of goals at a younger level. So maybe just need to give him a bit of a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think about Lonergan then, Jack? Do you feel similar about him? Do you think he's a little bit further along? Or again, does it sort of highlight that you probably are going to need another option just so that you're not putting all your eggs in the Graydon Coghlan basket?
Yeah, I think we do need options. And last season, I think we slipped up when Charlie Adams said that, we're not going to get a big-ish squad. We're going to rely on the academy, which that's probably why Caden Hughes didn't see a lot of football when Pete Wild came in. And then also Owen Davenport stepped up, but that's because obviously we put a lot of emphasis on Graydon and Coghlan. And then come January, Lonergan went out on loan. Meepo left in December, and then we were only left with them 2. And then we're bringing Devonport up, who I think, like Ben said, yeah, he can hold the ball up. I think it was a goal at MK Dons where it was a nice bit of movement, and you're thinking, can he replicate that? And I think, even though he is a target man, I think also sometimes a bit soft, but then you have to remember he is young, so he's not an experienced target man. He'll start elbowing people and playing the dark arts. He's not ready for that yet. But I think I've seen, for me, I've seen a bit more in Devonport than what some fans have seen. But I wouldn't really want him as the 3rd or 4th choice centre forward. I think we need 2 centre forwards coming in.
Sounds like you could do with a loan possibly in the National League North, just to get some confidence going. Okay. I wanted to ask you about Liam Roberts, because I think he'd had a loan spell at Waterford. He's a winger, I believe. So I guess the challenge, if you're a young winger at Fleetwood, is can you adapt to being a wing back and sort of carve a niche for yourself that way? Because if you don't play with the back 4, then it's going to be difficult to find opportunities.
100%, because it's a bit of an unknown what we're doing, because obviously if we're going to play a 4-2-3-1, obviously we'll need to sign at least 2 right wingers, because there's only Ryan Graydon who can play there, really. And then we saw him play his best football in the front 2. Obviously he's a right striker, so and then I think he played in a I can't remember the competition now. They've changed that many times.
Virtue Motors or something like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But yeah, I think he actually looked a decent carrier and decent technical footballer. So hopefully, he gets good crosses in the box. But I think sometimes what we see with the youngsters that they don't play much first team football, and then but then they've already got offers in, from Championship or Premier League academies. I think Reece Wilkes, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, he's got interest from Norwich. So obviously, that's the way that the academies ran. I think we've had also players go to Hull and all. So but I mean, obviously, if he has a good loan spell, then maybe Pete will like him. But I think the main prospects for Fleetwood currently are probably George Morrison, who I think of all the academy lads will have the most first team football next season.
Yeah, I think that looks likely. But I think in terms of producing players from the academy, the facilities at the club is a massive strength, because I've been to other training grounds in League Two, and they look a little bit run down. And Fleetwood's facilities at Poolfoot, they're fantastic. So first class. So I think that's a real strength in terms of the facilities to develop players. So go on.
Sorry, can I just ask you? Obviously, you knew a lot about Poolfoot and the facility there, but obviously going for the first time and seeing it, can you now understand sometimes why, players that you think how Fleetwood got them, and talk about Fleetwood being a money club, which Fleetwood have been, how may end up have been? Do you now understand like they are better than sometimes you imagine? Because I sometimes go, and now it's like, when you go quite regular, it's quite normal. But then like when I went for the first time, I was actually taken back by what there actually is there. Were you surprised at like the level of how good it was?
Yeah, do you know what, Ben? It was one of those where it's like, logically that the facilities are good because you sort of knew of it, but then you go there and you think, oh wow, yes, this is a proper training facility. So I can see how, if they're lobbying sort of potential recruits, they would take them to the training facilities and show them
the stadium.
Yeah, I was thinking that, Ben, but I didn't say
it. We just play here.
Yeah, exactly. So I can see how that would absolutely be a big draw for players, and also what I really hope under Pete Wild is, as well as using this to sign sort of high pedigree players in the Football League, also develop young ambitious players who want to really grow with the football club. And I think you're in a great opportunity to pick up players from elsewhere in the Northwest who might have dropped out of a Manchester United or a Liverpool, and give them that second opportunity to go again. And I think you've got a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and that's what Fleetwood want to do. I think Fleetwood are done in the days of where they're going to go and sign a big player. I think when we got to the playoffs, you look at Fleetwood's squad, there was like Barry Mackay, there was Ched Evans, Paddy Madden, Glenn Whelan, Paul Coots, Louis Coyle. It was very much of an experienced squad, really, of players that have gone on and done it at a higher level, where Fleetwood have tried to try and do that. As you see with a lot of clubs trying to do to get themselves into like Salford have done, Macclesfield are doing now, to be fair to them. They go and get a player. Wrexham have done it, and they'll try and go and get Premier League players now to get them into the Premier League. And gone are the days of that. Fleetwood now want to sign players that are maybe dropped out of Championship or Premier League academies and bring them, give them experience, and say, look, we can give you a platform over the next 2 or 3 years. Come and play 50, 100 games. You'll get your move. It's what we do. Jamie Pilley said to Mackenzie Hunt, don't judge us on what we are, judge us on what we do. And we produce young talent time and time again. And I would say over the last kind of 5 or 6 years, there's been a high turnover at Fleetwood. The younger players have gone on and got good moves. And the ones that we've kind of sold for money have actually had decent, like Josh Feeney's had a decent time at Villa, a couple of loan spells. I reckon he'll be in League One or potentially the Championship next season as well. And then you've got, Cheadle Morris went to Aberdeen, Billy Crellin went to Everton. So many you can mention, really. Yeah. And it's James Hill. Good to have that. James Hill, yeah, excellent. He had a long spell at Blackburn as well. Done very well for himself there. Jay Matete, he's made himself probably a very wanted League One footballer for what he does. And I think that he impresses a lot of people. I think away at Lincoln, Jay came away and said, you were right about Jay Matete, what a player he is. And that was like, 2 years later. I know Jake's always been 2 years behind the rest of us, but yeah, it's really good that we can produce these players and more players want to come here now.
I was surprised Jake was able to say you were right, Ben.
Yeah, he never says that, but I am, so it's fine. He knows that. He knows his place.
Expectations for next season then. I'll start with you then, Jack. I think that the minimum expectation would be to finish in the top 10, and I think that there will be the hope that you can be in the top 7 and beyond.
Yeah, I think, again, looking at the league, you want to be in and around the playoffs, because you look at the sides coming down, are Crawley going to overachieve again with Lindsay? Shrewsbury, there's been ownership problems there. I think the budget, people saying that isn't great. Cambridge, they've got Mark Bonner as director of football, so it's going to be interesting to see how he copes in a new role. And I think for me, the 3 teams that people automatically put in the top 3 will probably be Chesterfield, Bristol Rovers, and MK Dons. And I think if you look behind that, you've got Grimsby, Colchester, Swindon, and then you've got Fleetwood. Then you've got 5 mid-table clubs there last season anyway. So I think hopefully we are in the playoffs. And I've said it a lot of times, when Pete Wild went in at Barrow, he got them fighting for the playoffs, and that was probably on a similar budget, but then of a club who finished 21st or 22nd, you can't really attract them standard of players. But when Fleetwood got a comfortable mid-table finish, and like we said, we've got the facilities to attract players, and Pete sort of, I think he's well known for just being like a really good person to obviously his players. So I think that'll be a good attraction. I think, for me, playoffs has got to be this season.
Do you agree with that, Ben?
Yeah, I think that there should be. I'm a big believer in, smart targets, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And Pete Wild always talks about a time bound. I obviously listened to your podcast a couple of weeks ago when he said, I've been here for half a season. He's got another 2 seasons on his deal, and this season is kind of really stamping his authority. And I think the first thing should be the top 12, because I don't think Fleetwood finished inside the top 12 for 5 seasons, which is a bit of a. I think we finished 13th a few years ago under Scott Brown. We've not realistically cemented a top 12 or a top 10 for some time now. So I think we need to get back to that. That'll be a good start. Second target is really challenge on those playoffs and really ask a question and then get into the playoffs. My one issue with Pete is that, and I love him to bits, and I'm glad he's our manager. I think he suits us, and he spoke very in depth about it with your podcast as well. Obviously, I speak to Barrow fans about it as well. Yes, he's always had smaller budgets. Yes, he's always had smaller squads. But there's a thing with his squads that blow up after 32 games of the season. They're a top 3 or a top 7 side, and they are competitive. Now, I think from the outside, from what I've seen and what I've been to, it's like he's very gung-ho the way he plays, very high energy, high press, in your face, wants to be different. And then players just start to get tired, get a few injuries, maybe bring players in that can't quite level it. So he's never really had the squad to compete for a 46-game season. So
I think that's a big thing.
I think that's going to be a big thing. I'm just hoping we've got enough bodies in there, because last season we did not have more than enough. I'd say we're probably 5 bodies short last season. So apparently we go to a smaller squad this year. I was told at one, I was like, that sounds worrying. But it'd be very interesting to see if we can match it for 46 games. But I'm very optimistic. I'm very optimistic because Pete Wild is our manager. I'm very optimistic because we've signed one good player already. We've got the backing of the training ground, the owners there as well. So for the first time in a long while, there's a few positive rings coming out. The season starts in 7 weeks a day. So hopefully that it can be a good start, a good season for us, and Fleet will get back to doing what they do best, and not being liked, not being little old Fleetwood. And that's the best thing for me. When I love going to these grounds, you don't really get them in League 2 as much as League 1, where the ground's bigger than the population of Fleetwood, and I thrive, and the club thrive off that as well. And I just feel like they've lost that tenacity to go away and really, see out lose, victories away from home and get victories at home. So let's see. But I think the aim, well, playoffs. But I always say it first, and people hate me for it. Get to 50 points, stay in League Two next season, and then we'll start talking. When we're at 45, 50 points, we'll start talking again.
Just to add to that, I don't think Fleetwood are liked anyway with our goal music, Captain Pugwell.
No, but I don't like that. So because I was speaking to the announcer, and he went, "Oh, we all love it," and I'm like, I don't like it. It's great for the town and it's great for the football club. And
do you guys think though music in football is oversaturated? Because I don't think there's any sound better in football than the sound of the pure passion of fans roaring in celebration. And I think that sometimes you can undermine that by playing the music straight away after a big moment, like a full-time whistle or a goal's been scored. I think you'd actually rather hear the cheering and the roar. I'd rather hear that than the music. So I think football's gone a little bit in the wrong direction when it comes to music.
Yeah, I agree with it. I think there's a lot more other things in football that I'd like to get rid of. But I can see it. It depends on goal music. I think one that you can sing along to. I think Vale I've glad all over. Barrow I've glad all over as well. I think that. Blackpool
Vale. Oh yeah, Vale might have glad all over. They also have the Elvis Presley song.
Wonder of You.
Wonder of You. That's the one.
Yeah, and that for me, and I've got a lot of respect for it, is for me the best pre-match song that I've been involved with. You know what I mean? That I've seen personally.
I'm always singing along to it. I'm swinging
I'm in the away end singing to it, and I'm like, oh, we're already set up for defeat here. I didn't help my image of being Port Vale, everybody's supporter, does it? He'll rinse me for that in bottom.
Absolutely. Right. So as you both know, I've got to do my I'm doing my 1 to 24 in late July, and one of my processes for working that out is scoring each team out of 10 on 14 different categories that I think are going to basically influence their chances. So what I'd like is your help basically scoring the Fleetwood Town on these 14 categories. So give me a number between 1 and 10 for each of them. I'll just shout them out. Ownership, starting with that.
So he's 1 bad, 10's great.
Yeah, that's the one.
7. No,
7.
8. The great for Fleetwood, but there's limitations there. So 7.
Okay, 7. Would you agree with that, Jack?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Structure. Infrastructure. So I suppose you could. It's partly infrastructure, so the facilities comes into it.
Oh, okay.
But then also including the operational process of the club.
The facilities bump it up for me. I'd probably go 7 again.
7 again. Okay. Playing budget.
What about you, Jack? What do you think on that one?
Comparing to the league, I don't think we're as bad off this season, like comparing to the sides that have gone up and then sides that have come down. But I'd probably say a 5, because even if we do cash in on Brendan and we do get that money, I don't think we're going to go and sign a 250 grand, 300 grand player. I think that's long gone. Where I think the last one was Jack Marriott and Jaden Stockley when we signed them in January. So yeah, probably have a bang average 5.
I think we'll be mid-table for the league. I think that our budget will be lower because of the losses, but that losses will play the wage budget. Basically, I think will be how they operate.
Management.
Like you mean like the first team head coach management?
First team management, yeah.
8.
8. Yeah, I agree. Coming to you on this one, Jack. Goalkeeping position, pretty strong department, isn't it? At the moment.
Yeah, I'm going for I'm going for a 9 on that, only because Harrington can get injured, but then you have got a reliable keeper in Jay Lynch anyway. So we've got 2 solid goalkeepers there, and we've got McMullen out on loan, so we got 3.
Defense is a tough one to measure because I'm expecting 2 or 3 additions. We're expecting 2 or 3 additions there, but Ben, what would you sort of lean towards going on current personnel?
That's Brendan at the football club still, isn't it, as well? So
true, yeah.
Probably go 6. I'd probably go 6 because I think it's very mid-table League 2. So yeah, 6.
Okay. Jack, what would you go for on midfield? I think that's probably your strongest outfield area of the squad.
Yeah, I'd probably go 8. We just need probably, like you say, that creative spark.
I think Helm could be that, but we'll see.
Hopefully, because he has the chant, can't start a fire without a spark. So hopefully he can.
Absolutely. Ben, attack.
Cochran and Graydon, if it was, that would probably an 8 out of 10 for me. After that, there's nothing for me. So I'd probably knock it down to a 6.
A 6, okay.
Upper strikers, then we're back up.
Squad depth is a difficult one to judge for now. Let's work on the assumption that, say, 6 more additions come in between now and the end of the window.
That probably averages a 25-man squad, I'd imagine. So,
but then Brendan Wirradoo's got to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of players on that retain list that so I think people listed as like an 18-man squad. You could probably take 3, like Lonergan's included in that. Liam Roberts is included in that. And it's like there's a lot of players that you think that
was it Tom somebody Johnson as the right back?
Yeah, exactly.
Will Johnson.
In and around it, but he's not going to. So for me, I looked at it, I probably narrowed it down to about a 13 or a 14-man squad.
Right.
One was Luke Hewitson, who's the third choice goalkeeper. So it's like I probably think, well, I think we're maybe 15 or 16. So I would probably say we need another 8 or 9, but we're going on 6.
Okay, yeah. Well, we can bump up the estimated number of incomings.
Yeah, so far I'll probably say
it's a tough one, isn't it?
Yeah, a 6, I'd reckon.
Okay, should we go 6 for now? And these will sort of change depending on what happens. Squad stability.
7.
7. Fair. The net growth potential. Players you think have you got players who you think are going to be way better than this season than last?
It's kind of hard, that, to be honest, because if we see a full season as Zach Medley, then yeah, if Bonds can take it to another level, because he only really shown his upper quality for the past like 3 months, so I'd probably say a 7 or 8 on that.
Should we go 7, Ben?
Yeah, 7. Agree with Jack.
Okay.
For once.
I got that in first, mate.
Team spirit.
We haven't got any bad guys in that group, to be honest.
That's good.
If you asked me 18 months ago, I'd probably gone like a 2 or 3.
Although Wild did mention when I spoke to him about needing, what was it? Black. It was like white ball players and yellow ball players. So he thinks that.
I remember something like
that. In the winter period.
Actually, I was speaking to Phil, who I commentate with at Fleetwood about that, because when he first came in, he came in December. It's when obviously the yellow ball comes out. And he always talked about the ABCs being difficult to break down and being kind of, we might not be the most glamorous to watch, but will be effective. And that's exactly what we were. And then when we got to March, we started to see a bit nicer football, to be fair. So I'd say 8, because I think there's a lot of lads that, again, that want to be here, that know the role, know the place as well. And there's not probably, for the first time, I've not thought, there's a player in there that they're not a good lad, or they're not a good player, or there's something about every single player that they offer to the group. So I'd probably go 8.
8, okay. Fitness, Jack, coming to you on this.
Obviously that includes injuries, doesn't it?
It's sort of you could interpret it in terms of avoiding injuries, but you could also interpret it in terms of the athleticism of the group. I've kind of merged the two areas.
I say we have got good athleticism, but then there's I think last season that's all we were saying, to be honest, if we had this player back and this player back. So I'd probably give it a 6.
6, okay. And the other one, the final one, is quality.
We've got a lot of quality, but we've got a lot of players that I think that, if you ask me, like keep, I'd probably keep maybe 10 or 11 first team player. But that'd be most clubs. So that's no different to most clubs. So I would probably say there's a lot of quality in there now. Probably the best group we've had for a number of years since probably the COVID lockdowns. Probably the best squad we've had, realistically, without spending too much money on a player. And that includes spending like £500,000 on 2 strikers. Bear in mind in Stockley and Marriott. So I'd probably go 7. I think there's a lot of quality there. It's just the depth of the quality, unfortunately. But most clubs are the same in League Two.
Yeah, absolutely. So final questions from me then. Coming to you, Jack, what's the biggest reason to believe in Fleetwood Town right now?
The manager. I think also the togetherness of the squad. I think that we've shown when Pete Wow was in charge, and also I think the current squad. I think if we put it in comparison to League Two, I think it would be in that sort of top 8 sort of bracket there. I think, and obviously with the additions, obviously with the pulling factor of the training ground, I think teams should be optimistic about Fleetwood and not just putting us maybe, I don't know, mid-table or lower mid-table because of the name of Fleetwood.
Yeah. Is there a reason for doubt that either of you have?
Maybe depth a little bit again as well. That Fleetwood aren't maybe the same club as we were. Maybe losing recruitment team as well in the most important time of the season isn't always great. Let's be honest about it. But I think that Pete's the type of guy that loves that type of thing. Pete gives me the type that he played a lot of Football Manager as a young lad as well. He loved being in and around it, signing the players, and probably his favourite part of managing, to be fair, that is it is the best part, isn't it? When you're on Football Manager or FIFA as a kid and you're trying to sign all these players, trying to negotiate, and you're thinking, oh, I can play you. And the managing part is like, oh, you've got a manager now. But yeah, there's a couple of doubts there. Not enough in a forward line yet. But it's very hard to say. It's great to talk to you, but we're 7 weeks away.
Of course, yeah, I appreciate
7 weeks. And that, when you speak to kind of journalists or you speak to 442, for example, when they do the magazine, that I just wrote for them, and it's 7 weeks away until the magazine's going to be published. The 2 players that I say have been great could leave the football club, and the 2 players that I'm worried, all of a sudden it changes as well. So I'm a lot more positive. For every 1 doubt, I've got 9 positives, I could probably say, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that kind of feeds into my last question for you, Jack. What do you think? Too early for a prediction for the reasons that Ben mentioned, but how confident or optimistic are you about your prospects next season?
I'm confident because looking at, again, like I said, the standard of the league and sides like us, Grimsby, Colchester, who had a decent, campaign. Obviously, Grimsby and Colchester had better ones. But I think, obviously, with us having a manager in Pete Wild, if we came into the season with Charlie Adam, I think I'd probably be less optimistic. But I think with Pete, I think he just knows the league. He knows how to get around things. I think he's a proactive manager rather than just letting the problems come to you than reacting at the time. So, yeah, I am optimistic and just hopefully that, we can keep on to the players like Graydon and Bonds because, they will attract interest for the season at the back end.
Absolutely. Well, listen, gents, thanks so much for joining us. It's been lovely to chat. Thanks so much to Ben, YouTuber on Fleetwood Town, and also you do some work for the official podcast as well, don't you?
Yes. Got a meeting about that next week, which is all good, ready for the new season. So looking forward to it. Was nice to spoke to a couple of the first team players, Mackenzie Hunt last year. And I think I spoke to Brendan Wirradu, Ronan Coughlin, and Mark Helm was another one. So very interesting how you change your mindset on a few different things when you see it up close as well. And I wouldn't want to tell Zet Medley what to do. It's 6'5", believe me.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Ben. Likewise, Jack, it's been great to have your insight. Get following Ben at FTFC Knappers and Jack at JK Analysis 7. This has been the EFL Debate Fleetwood Town Summer Deep Dive, and we'll see you again for another deep dive very soon.